Darkness. Rarely in art is darkness conveyed in such a way that resonates. I once watched a movie years back called Eden Log. A lone naked man awakes in complete darkness and stumbles through his surroundings, cold, alone, helpless and lost, trying to make sense of his sci-fi hell. It was truly unnerving. As with our own lives, the fear of the unknown penetrates through us like nothing else. Our imagination consumes. A hallmark of Lovecraftian horror, the fear of the unknown. Similarly, Dmitry Gluhovsky's novel Metro 2033, later adapted into the game, also captures the slow, suffocating, claustrophobic terror of being stuck in a mazy underground metro system that runs for miles. There Is No Light completely captures this horrific beauty and runs with it. The remains of human civilization have been driven into the desolated underground after a global catastrophe. Maddened by darkness, the inhabitants have forgotten the light and now follow a Lovecraftian creature known as the Great Hand. Every few years, this hand descends into the station and snatches up chosen newborns as a blood sacrifice. Sounds dark? Yep, that's because it really is. This time, it's our innocent bundle of joy snatched as we, the babyless protagonists, begin our journey to bring them home. If you're a fan of Lovecraftian horror or grimdark fantasy, you're going to like what There Is No Light has to offer, at least aesthetically. The gorgeous pixel art and animations are fabulous here, both stylistically and functionally. NPCs walk around with fire blazing from their eyes. Plant-like creatures made of teeth birth abominations in the darkness. By removing the finer details, the game forced my mind to imagine the finer nuances of the scene unfolding in front of me. Again, the fear of the unknown persists. The game never just tells you, but shows you through the environment and characters. At the start of the game, you're quickly introduced to followers of the Messiah on a pilgrimage to find their holy deity. Initially, these pilgrims are few and far between, the odd lone traveller describing their hopeful path towards enlightenment with a bubbling apprehension. As you travel the path, the conditions of the followers gradually deteriorate and become far more frequent as you press into the darkness. Chipper pilgrims slowly become consumed by madness and fanaticism, and this isn't just shown through the dialogue but the environment too. Bodies lay strewn across the ground, pleading for salvation as you get closer to your destination. As you can imagine, playing this section for an hour created a foreboding tension as I pressed forward. This is where There Is No Light really shines, as it flits between combat and lore. The intrigue just kept me pushing. You as the player are trudging through darkness to find pockets of life, a temporary salvation. I say salvation because the game is full of religious iconography and allegory, and is definitely saying something about faith and belief, and how humanity will even sacrifice a newborn child to maintain the status quo. I won't go too much into it now, as there is a ton to explore. One side story that really stood out to me was an NPC in the game. Well, rather two, as they're conjoined. One is slowly getting younger and the other slowly getting older. The elder of the two passes you a note in secret, a quest to rid the younger one of the filth that is him. One of those small stories that really had me sucked in. Is the game too dark? I think for many gamers it might be. I was never a fan of sections in games where you just have a torch and you're going through a dark corridor and you can barely see anything. However, this isn't as prevalent as you might think in There Is No Light. Darkness, from my experience, was used as a pacing mechanism. Tension, exploration, tension, exploration. You bounce between those both as you scrape away at what There Is No Light is obscuring, both visually and narratively. It struck the perfect balance between lore, boss fights and tension, and I never felt bored or tense for too long. The soundscape is unnerving. The guttural chortling of creatures, the helpless murmurs, and a score that drags the player deeper into the misery enhances the overall experience. You are given a sword with the option to unlock more weapons down the line. These do mix up gameplay and are a warm welcome, the first coming around 3 to 4 hours in. In essence, you have a slash attack that builds a meter at the bottom of the screen. Once this meter is filled, you can unleash a special attack that can stun enemies. Enemies will choreograph their attacks with white, yellow and red symbols. White you can interrupt, yellow you can only interrupt with your special attack, and red you can't interrupt. If you interrupt an enemy winding up a yellow attack with your special attack, the enemy will produce health that you have to hit before you can regain that point. There was a big issue the game had at launch that thankfully the devs have fixed after the fact. Initially having to constantly look down at whether the bar was filling up meant that I wasn't looking at my character or the enemy. Sometimes I would try to use it expecting it to be ready, and other times I would save it up and I'd be none the wiser. The devs included a red glow around the player once this was filled, a really great addition, as for me this was one of the main issues holding the game back. Kudos to the devs for listening to feedback. The game does a great job of giving you a variety of different enemy types coupled together in combat situations. Say an enemy that is easy on their own may be made a lot harder paired with something else, and this always had me on my toes. Sometimes this did lead to frustration, and some enemy encounters felt like a battle of endurance rather than a solid challenge once you got your method down, but overall the combat encounters and new weapons add enough variety to keep it entertaining. Boss battles as a spectacle hit, but mechanically are a little too basic for my liking. Some are challenging, but once you figure out the pattern you can usually rinse through their health pools fairly easily. I'm divided here because some of the designs are great, but I do think more could be done to make the fights more memorable. The inventory UI is pretty bare, and that's okay as the game is going for this minimalist aesthetic. However, there is a karma mechanic in the game where you gain karma during conversations that can then be spent, allowing you to start a new encounter with an extra health vial or allowing you a mini checkpoint in between the main ones at the cost of good karma, and this shows on a scale. However, there is no way to see this in any menu, only when you're about to make the decision. This is frustrating because you need karma to do some of the side missions, and this just isn't clear. Overall, There Is No Light is a great title to sink your teeth into this Halloween. Zealot's commitment to refining the game makes it a better time than any to jump into this one-way ticket to hell and back. I had to squeeze in a darkness reference about a game that is all about darkness. I'm sorry.